what was going well got better, what was going bad just burst. So in this case, I don't know if you guys recall back in the day, that was about 3 years ago when Saul had surgery on his knee, and Golden Boy took out a press release saying that he was having some cosmetic surgery, and then Canelo went straight up and said, I'm not having no cosmetic surgery, I'm having knee surgery. So right off the bat, you see, and those are nuances that most people just look, oh, well, miscommunication, especially when we're talking about a fighter and a promoter. That communication has to be on point and very tight. And then it just went downhill. I'm just giving you very few examples. How when the first fight was announced against Yildirim, and then it was a cluster. It was a cluster, and that was back in 2020. And we could hear the back and forth, and there was issues when he had to turn in his title at 175, and then they had issues with the matchmaker. It just gave us a very good image of what was rumbling underneath. There was definite discomfort. But Canelo always performed. He came in, he did what he had to do. Obviously, he was limited to no fights in 2020, except, back in December. But it just came to a screeching halt when he finally said, you know what, you guys are in breach of contract, and I need to sever ties. Talk about cut your nose to spite your face. But at that point in time, in his book, he needed to just get rid of the shackles. And I'm going to, and just so people understand that this is not just Canelo. I remember Oscar did it against Bob Arum at the time, and then he became his own promoter. Mikey Garcia did it against Bob Arum as well. Mike Tyson did it against Don King. There's a point where the entities have to grow together, and you cannot control a power like Saul Canelo Alvarez, especially because he's become the face of boxing. He's amicable, he's friendly, people can relate to him, he's good looking, he's friendly. But the fact that there was this cloud over him, so he perceived it as a cloud, and he was not being able to just explore other ways of doing business for obvious reasons. You're tied to a contract. That must have just not let him be. I can personally say he was always very happy-go-lucky. We were always singing with Chepo. Chepo was always, just sharing cooking, poetry. That was his persona with us, with the people. I'm not going to say that I'm not close to Canelo at all, but I've just known him for so long that, and I went to his camp so many times, they just kind of understand the dynamics. But that cloud of discomfort would not let that trickle out, if that makes any sense, or seep through for the public eye.
Totally agree with that. There was something I wanted to bring up. I saw an interview with yourself with another channel about 2 years ago, just before the Canelo Daniel Jacobs fight. Mm-hmm. You were, in your opinion, is he beloved in Mexico? And this was around the time when he just had fought Triple G. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember if it was the first or the second fight. I think it was the second fight with Triple G.
Must have been the second, because if we're talking about Daniel Jacobs, yeah.
Yeah, and some of the Mexican fans swayed more towards Triple G at that time. And your statement was that it doesn't matter. The Mexican fans, love or hate him, will always follow Canelo Alvarez. Let's fast forward 2 years now, almost 2 years, it'll be 2 years this May. How has that perception of those fans changed for Canelo Alvarez? Is it all love now?
No, it's not all love, and it's never going to be all love. If it's all love, then you're doing something wrong. But criticism to a Mexican fighter is like, water. It's every day. And I try to remind people, there was a time that Julio wasn't Julio the way we know him today. There was a time that he was looked upon as being, he's just facing cab drivers. He's facing, the baker and the butcher. And that's exactly the same thing they're saying about Canelo. There was a time that people talked about El Chiquita Gonzalez, Salvador Sanchez, El Puas Oliveras. I mean, I can give you hundreds of names that at any given time were scrutinized. Their records were scrutinized. But let's remember, historically speaking, there is such thing as record padding. We need fighters to get enough fights. We need those rounds. We need those flying hours. So, you know, he who hasn't done it, throw the first rock, for God's sakes. So at this point in time, it's so much easier to point a finger at Canelo because he makes it seem so easy. They just keep arguing, well, they're not fighting anybody, and they compare Yildirim, and they just say, well, he didn't bring, you know, his fight mode to this event. How can you bring fight mode when you have somebody that's overpowering you? And let's not forget that Yildirim is naturally much bigger than Canelo. And we can say the same thing about Callum Smith, but people will not give credit to Callum Smith. And it also, it's almost like the law of the land. It's not until you retire that people would start, you know, looking at the record. Oh, yo, so he did fight Sugar Shane Mosley. Oh, he did fight Canelo. Oh, he did fight Sergey Kovalev. Look at this. So at this point in time, we have about, if not full-blown Hall of Famers, future Hall of Famers in your record. Hindsight is 2020. People will always acknowledge and appreciate and respect what has been done. And I go back to the statement that we were talking about before. The uncomfortable transition in between then and tomorrow is what we're living right now, with Canelo's career being a perfect example. We're watching greatness. And will he ever get to 108-0? No. Or 89-0 like Julio Cesar Chavez? No. Because that's not the way fighters function nowadays. Before, a fighter could have 4 and 5 fights a month because the competition was not there. Now we have very refined, high-performing athletes. We have fighters that have strength and conditioning coaches, that have nutritionists, that their lifespan is that much longer. Their shelf life is that much longer. But how do you accomplish that? Obviously, you taper down activity. It's not you get ready for a fight. No. This is you're always ready. And then you tighten up, you know, the loose screws just to prepare for a fight. Before we had the Julio Cesar Chavez that would finish a fight and go on a binge of a week or more, we don't have that anymore. If you talk to Juan Manuel Marquez, well into his 40s, he was fighting at the best of his ability. And look at Bernard Hopkins, same thing. So we are looking at a completely different generation of fighters that perhaps will not appeal to the casual fan, just to the diehard fan. And I remember having this conversation, and in that conversation I said exactly the same thing. Boxing is like jazz. The more sophisticated it is, the harder it is to appreciate. That's why Floyd Mayweather will always be the boogeyman, because nobody will really appreciate his boxing style. It doesn't appeal to the regular mass, to the casual fan, because we want people beating each other up. But Canelo has done a nice hybrid between a beautiful defense, and he doesn't get much credit for it, and a sledgehammer, which is his left hook.
I mean, I agree. I mean, you see the way he broke down Callum Smith, who's who for me was a very big super middleweight, a fantastic fighter, and he made him look quite ordinary in that night, and he just broke him down literally round by round. I'm very surprised that Callum Smith actually lasted the distance, because I really thought he was going to get stopped.
Well, you know what? I had a chance to speak to Liam immediately after the fight. And Liam knew what Canelo could do. And obviously he prepared his brother. By the way, I've never seen a family so tight. It was such a pleasure to see. And Liam even told me, I mean, we're here and we know that this is going to be a tough fight. I don't care how much bigger Callum Smith is. I don't care how much rangier Callum can be. Canelo and Eddie will find a way to neutralize whatever weapons we have. And it will be systematic. And then when I spoke to Eddie, he said there's many ways to break down a fighter, and it's not just boxing. I mean, we talked about frustration, we talked about patience. Once you take away just one weapon, or you use it and it's not creating the punishment or the damage that it's meant to do, then what do? Then you have to dig deep. But if you don't have the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual ability to just hang tight and be patient enough to allow this, whatever fight plan you have in place, develop through the fight, then you're done. Because you need that. And that's exactly what happened to Callum. You did see the hematoma in his arm. He brought that down. Canelo brought that arm down because he knew that was the arm that was going to keep him at a distance. So what did he do? I'm not going to go to the body. I know I can get to the body later, but I'm just going to start bringing the guard down so I can get into the body. Beautifully.
Fantastic. It was fantastic. Question I'd like to ask you is, there's been a deal that's been signed between Jose Ramirez and Josh Taylor, undisputed junior welterweight titles. I want to ask you, will you be in attendance for this fight, and how excited are you for this fight?
I am extremely excited. Jose Carlos Ramirez, to me, is perhaps one of the most complete fighters we have. Talk about endurance. Talk about focus. This is a man on a mission. And the mission is a lot bigger than just boxing. He's bringing I don't know if you guys know, he's bringing awareness to some serious water issues in the area where he's from, which is in the area of, mid-California, San Jose area. And he takes it to heart. And he's convinced that he will make a difference through boxing and bring awareness. I don't know if I will attend because that is actually, I think that's going to be a top rank event. But I don't know. Anything can happen. I would love to be there. I would, if it were up to me, I'd be in every single fight. But, sometimes I have other things like mommy duty that takes precedence over everything.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fantastic fight. It's a fight for me. I think it's probably going to be maybe the fight of the year. And the reason why I say that is because it's been talked about for a long, long time. They both fighters said they wanted to fight for a long, long time, especially Josh Taylor. And Josh Taylor can go on to make history, the first Scottishman to be undisputed champion. So this is another reason why I'm really looking forward to this fight.
Jermaine, you just said something very important. He wants to make history. What better drive and motivation do you have than that? It's the same motivation that Tyson Fury has, Anthony Joshua, Canelo Alvarez, and Jose Carlos also. He wants to be included in that very short list of outstanding Mexican-American fighters. That I think, and the skill set, they're so parallel. And the way they fight, they're not flat-footed fighters. They're willing to go in a brawl, but they're actually boxers that can actually, just sit in their punches. And when they do, all hell breaks loose.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a fantastic fight. The fight, like I said, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be massive.
Yes. So if you guys have any say, invite me.
The thing that I'm happy about is that there was obviously the whole controversial rumors of that it might be the same night as Canelo and Billy Joe Saunders. So thank God, for the sake of boxing and the fans, it's not. So that's the other fight I want to bring up. Obviously, back to Canelo. For me, apart from, this is just my opinion, apart from obviously a younger Canelo against Floyd Mayweather, for me, he faces his toughest ever test against Britain's best super middleweight, in my opinion, and arguably probably the second best boxer in Britain behind Tyson Fury. What does Canelo have to do to beat someone like Billy Joe Saunders? Because we've seen in the past, Billy's style is similar to Lara, and that's someone that caused a lot of problems to Canelo. When you put the pressure on him, it makes him panic. So what does he have to do to beat an awkward fighter like Billy Joe Saunders?
Nando, two things. The Lara fight, was, in terms of progression, I'd say that was his bachelor's degree. Mayweather was his master's. And I would push Cotto as being his PhD, his dissertation for his PhD. I assure you, as Claudia Fernanda Trejos González Aristizábal Botero is my name, this is not the same fighter that will be facing Billy Joe Saunders. And we can see it clearly, obviously not the same level of mobility between Callum and Billy Joe Saunders. But we've had this point, we've touched upon his patience, his focus. And with that being said, I am also going to add the growth in Eddie Reynoso's intangibles, meaning the ability to see those things that perhaps are not so keen on people's and broadcasters' eyes, but little flaws, and to capitalize on those flaws. Many thought that somebody like Sergey Kovalev, obviously a brawler, fat-footed, has only one direction forward and one rhythm, which is nothing. But the fact that he could evade that powerful punch coming from the Crusher himself, despite him not being in his prime, that gives me a very good sense of where his head is, where he actually sees the punch coming from. And now we add the defense, those slight movements, almost Matrix style, and his mobility. I don't know if you guys saw this. It was obvious against Callum. His circular movement, very, very well measured. And not many fighters are very good at fighting on their heels. Canelo is slowly but surely getting that down to a T. He will need all that mobility and being able to just be patient and focused. Why? When I spoke to Eddie, when they announced that fight against Billy Joe Saunders, he says, my only concern is the fact that Billy Joe has the ability of getting into people's minds, in people's heads. And that, in fact, is what first breaks a fighter down. Again, I'm going to go to Tito Trinidad, Bernard Hopkins. 9/11 happened. Bernard Hopkins was, beating him in the head, calling him all kinds of names, throwing the Puerto Rican flag on the floor. What happened to Tito? Tito came in with a vicious, vicious plan, and he just wanted to rip Bernard Hopkins' head off. End result, he lost. Why? Because he was not the same razor-focused fighter that fought against Oscar de la Hoya. And the mind is the first one that has to be on point. And especially against somebody as elusive and highly mobile and awkward, like you said, like Billy Joe Saunders. And I'm sure they're going to dissect not just his style, but tendencies. We all know that fighters have tendencies. Either you take 2 steps, 3 steps, or you move to the right, or how do you hide, how many jabs, what type of combinations you throw. We all have tendencies. That's part of fighting, at that level. What makes Billy Joe Saunders even more awkward is the fact that there is no rhythm to his rhythm. It's like Pernell Whitaker that made him so confusing because he just there was no timing to his boxing. And it's really hard to it's when you're dancing with somebody that doesn't know how to dance, that even you could be Michael Jackson, but you're going to look like crap because you're dancing with somebody that doesn't know how to dance. So that will be one of the challenges that Canelo will face. He is fighting somebody who's awkward, whose timing is a little bit off, highly mobile, but first and foremost has the ability to get into your head and just dig in there, dig until you lose your mind and you lose your patience and you get frustrated. And what happens then is you lose control.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. The mind games is crucial. You look at Tyson Fury versus Vladimir Klitschko. Tyson Fury got in Vladimir Klitschko's head before the fight, even down to the last minute when he got him to change the ring. Pretty much just went against the plan, got in his head. And, he just created history that night by that performance. And you never seen a Klitschko perform like that. That was a different Klitschko. That wasn't a Vladimir Klitschko we know and love.
I totally agree. And again, I go back to the mindset. But that has been played around forever. I don't know if you guys remember Oscar de la Hoya, Fernando Vargas. Until the very last minute, right before the fight, they were arguing about, against the commission, about the type of water that they wanted to drink in the corner. Fernando wanted Gatorade. Did he really want Gatorade? No. He was just trying to get into Oscar's head. It's one more thing to worry about when you're supposed to just be calm down. I remember Wayne was a mess. So again, Ricardo Mayorga, for God's sakes, he had Sugar Shane Mosley's number. Vernon Forrest.
Yeah.
Mayorga, but was it skill? No. It's, just being able to dig in there.
So if Billy Joe Saunders is watching, wear your Batman suit, do what Tyson Fury did with Klitschko, and you'll win. Simple as that.
Hey, we shouldn't be airing this right now.
Let's move on to obviously the big event this weekend. Obviously, you're going to be there. Mm-hmm. It's the big rematch that I don't know why it's taken so long. It's taken 9 years to make. We have Juan Francisco Estrada versus Roman Gonzalez, aka Choclatito. The rematch, and then we got the big fight between Jessica Mccaskill and Cecilia Braekhus for the undisputed, and then obviously a great stacked card. You got great fighters like up and coming prospects like Raymond Ford. You got Jones third, Austin Williams, and then Kaiguchi versus Axel Vargas for the light. Is it flyweight, super flyweight title? It's WBC and the ring. So what a great event. Let's start off with Mccaskill Braekhus. Are we going to see a better fight than the first one?
Oh, absolutely. I think Chocolatito has done a great job at recovering from those two losses against Rungvisai. He's a much more... I don't know if you guys remember, the biggest battle for Chocolatito was not even the fight itself. It was the fight against the scale. So just making weight became an issue. And this fight is going to take place in a different weight division. And obviously, Juan Francisco Estrada has already done what he had to do. That first fight, we could have said he didn't have the experience. He didn't have the flying hours that Chocolatito did. Now, I think they're at an even playing field. And it's going to showcase each fighter's skills much better, because again, we're not going to have those issues that we have for the first fight. I think Cuadras, El Príncipe Cuadras, was a great measuring point for both fighters. And these are two now very well seasoned, matured fighters that are coming into the ring. They're very aware of what's at play. And with that being said, the money has also increased. So there's a bigger motivation. I remember that fight took this long to make because I remember for the WBC convention, we sat them both on our show, and they were both saying, listen, we give the crowd an extraordinary show. We give our hearts and our souls. We go into camp for, 3 months in a row. We deserve to get paid. Just because we're smaller guys, it doesn't mean the show is any less interesting or appealing. And I think this is the time, it took this time for people to really recognize the value they bring to the ring, the value they bring to boxing, and the kind of skills that we get a chance to see. And obviously, I don't think we're going to have the same issue we had again in the Manny Pacquiao-Floyd Mayweather fight. We waited 5 years for that fight to happen, but obviously it fell through. I don't think this is going to be the case because I see both fighters determined, hungry, ready to go. And the money's there, the show is there, the platform is there. And moreover, I think this division deserves the type of attention that they're getting right now.
I'm going to call it now. I'm not going to say who wins.
Okay, I'm hearing.
But I could see another Oscar Valdez situation.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know who, but I have this feeling. It's the year of the knockouts. Last year was the year of the jab. This year is the year of the knockouts. I can see it.
Well, just for giggles, I'm going to tell you what we saw in Chocolatito in the undercard of Vargas against Mikey Garcia. Remember that?
Yeah.
That was pretty impressive. And this is a guy that his his KO percentage is a little less than 80%. And Khalid Jafai was a bigger guy. He rehydrated much bigger than Chocolatito. So I could see that happening. And Juan Francisco Estrada comes, his knockout percentage is not up to that level. But he did what he had to do against Carlos Cuadras. Carlos Cuadras is a very, very sly fighter. I could see the knockout. I don't know if El Gallito will be able to take on all that punishment, but he knows how to use those lateral movements. He knows how to walk the ring. So he's going to have to walk the ring a lot. You know what's going to be a play right now? Conditioning. Let's see who has more lungs. And then we'll see the knockout.
And
I don't
timing.
think, yeah, and timing. I think the production, the punch production on both ends is massive. They're the type that at least between 50 and I'd say 80 punches per round, and I'm just being very conservative. And I want to see how long that's going to last. And I think the knockout or knockdown, let's give it a knockdown. Let's be fair. Not a knockout, but a knockdown. A knockdown. Okay. Will come not necessarily because they can't take the punishment, but rather than it's just going to be out of exhaustion. I think. I could be wrong, but I think.
Let's see on Saturday.
Yes.
Let's talk about obviously Mccaskill Braekhus.
Yes.
Do you think this will live up to the first fight?
Oh yeah. So just to let's make sure we tell people exactly what's at play, because a lot of people just say, "Oh, it's a rematch." No. It's a WBC, the WBA, the IBF, the WBO, and the IBO.
Wow.
And the ring.
5, 6. I don't have the ring. I don't have the ring magazine. I just have those.
I think that's vacant, the ring magazine, if I'm not mistaken.
It could be. It's not listed, so I'm not saying they're totally right, but let's just say. So I don't think I've ever seen that much hardware in a fight. And we saw what happened in the first fight. Going back to, I know Cecilia. I've followed her career. She was a dominant force at 147. Dominant force. And she's a big girl. She's a big 147. Jessica Mccaskill, I saw her coming up the ranks. And have you guys seen Jessica?
Yeah, I've seen a few of her, yeah.
Personally?
Yeah. No. We haven't had the pleasure of meeting her face to face.
But first of all, they're both lovely ladies. Lovely ladies. That if you see them in a beautiful nightgown, how I've had a chance to see them, they're so gracious and soft spoken, and you could be mistaken. Don't piss them off. You could easily misconstrue their kindness for weakness. Easily. And Jessica Mccaskill is just maybe about my height. I'm 5'3". I don't know what that is. 1.60 meters? Does that make sense?
It could be, yeah.
1.60 meters, somewhere around there. And once you see her and you see her aura, this is a woman that is all business. She's got a brilliant smile. She's all smiles, and her eyes light up. But one thing that comes to mind when I see her is razor sharp. This woman is all about business. This is a woman that works a regular job. She wakes up at 4:00 in the morning. She trains before she goes to work. She goes to work, comes back from work, trains some more. She does 3 a days. I haven't done 3 a days. I've never done 3 a days. And I work hard. No. But she said to me, this is what it takes to be the best. I can't cut corners. There is no cutting corners. And Ramos, his trainer, says, I need to slow her down. How often do we get a chance to say that? I'm just asking.
Never. I never heard of it.
So that reflected very well on that first fight against Cecilia. Cecilia, a strong fighter, but she was broken down systematically by somebody that just was hungry and she was going to take it. She was going to take it. There's going back to the power of the mind. And I am going to see Cecilia has been working with Abel Sanchez, and Abel is one of those trainers that, again, he doesn't break down the fighter, he just adds to a fighter. And I remember him saying about Gennady Golovkin back in the day, before Triple G went to work with Jonathan Banks. He said, there is no fire in Triple G, and I don't have what it takes to light up. He's lost the killer instinct for whatever reason. I think it had a lot to do, if we're going to even say that, had to do with his dad's passing. And with Cecilia, he said the other way around. She needed the fire to be lit under her ass and go through the pandemic, stuck in a freaking mountain for months. And she needed to go through that to reevaluate where she was in, what position was she was in. And I think we're going to see a much more aggressive, a much more go-getter in Cecilia in this fight.
100%. I think it'll be an amazing fight. And whoever wins can open the doors for such great fights. If Braekhus wins, it could open the opportunity for, let's say, a trilogy. If Mccaskill wins, it can open the opportunity to maybe go down and fight Callie Ray, Chantel Cameron, or maybe even go down further and get that rematch with Katie Taylor. Maybe go up, Clarissa Shields. You know, it's just so many opportunities there for the winner there, and it's just going to be a great fight.
You know what's funny? That we actually talk about women and their ability to go up and down in weight. And usually with men, they can't. As a matter of fact, when we talk about Amanda Serrano and when we talk about Clarissa Shields, now we're talking about Katie Taylor. Now, you know, it's amazing because women, we have to deal with that extra layer of fat, the hormones, Making weight is an issue. And yet, it's the women that have actually descended on weight and taken championships. Men don't seem to be able to do that. Another agree. Point.
It's amazing. I mean, like you said, going up all these weight divisions and becoming champions is incredible. You don't see it much in the men's. Obviously now you're only seeing one fighter doing it at the moment. That's Canelo. You don't really see many fighters going up and down in weight and trying to claim all belts in all divisions, really.
No. As a matter of fact, let's talk about the elephant in the room, Manny Pacquiao. I mean, 8 divisions, but he's always gone up. You know, and the furthest, or Julio, he only went up. Or Terrence Crawford, they only go up, huh?
Roy Jones
Jr. Yes. But okay, so with that, let's be fair. His heavyweight championship was against John Ruiz. Hello. So let's be fair here, okay? And all respects to Roy Jones, my respects. Efficiently, very few can say that. To go from, you know, super middle to light heavy to cruiser to heavyweight, hands down. But really, John Ruiz? Okay, anyway. I'm not hating. I'm just stating the obvious.
We could see Canelo doing that.
Yes. Well, he's doing it. He did it. Let's not forget that Canelo's career started at 147. He was just not successful at 147 because his frame, his bones are solid. He's big boned. So his success started at 154, 160, 168, 175. You know what? I actually, he got a little pissed off at me because I said, I really don't see, with all due respect to Billy Joe Saunders and obviously the upcoming fight, but the real challenge would be somebody against like Beterbiev.
Yeah.
Who's a solid puncher and his mobility is there. And he goes, you just want me to lose. I said, no, I don't want you to lose. I want a competitive fight. And, it's like when we get to the sandbox and we're just already building castles and here comes the little kid with the little car and we're already in castles. Well, he's got to go up to the castles.
That would be an amazing fight. And I think you see a more competitive, tougher fight than it was against Kovalev.
Completely. Completely. Because Kovalev has obviously certain dangers that he brings to the table. He hits like a mule. And for all those that are wondering, past his prime, well, let me tell you, Julio Cesar Chavez is 56 years old and he still hits like a mule. Power in your punch is not lost. Speed, reflex, footwork, yes. But power in a punch, you never learn it and you never forget it. It's either with you or not with you. Kovalev will always have the crusher in his punches.
100%.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I said to Nando a few times, I can't see anyone beating Canelo. If anyone does beat Canelo, it'll be at light heavyweight. I just can't really see him losing it at super middleweight at the moment.
Ooh, you just called it a win against Billy Joe Saunders, Jermaine. Ooh.
Well,
I got you.
That's down to Billy to prove me wrong and on the night and prove a lot of people wrong. But if I'm honest, I just can't see it. He's just a different beast.
I agree. He's a completely different beast, and that's it. You know what? I feel sometimes that we're all playing AAA baseball, and he's the elite of Major League Baseball. But we're all playing here. We're all having a great time playing here. And he comes up here, and that's why he makes everybody look like they're rookies and flat. But it's not his fault, because we're expecting for everybody to be here. And that's my argument on a regular basis. There was only one Sugar Ray Robinson. There was only Sugar Ray Leonard. There was only one Manny Pacquiao, one Golden Boy. The rest are B's, C's, and D's. That's why stars are stars. And we cannot expect everybody to rise to that place. So it's so easy to sit here and judge every single opponent. No, you need the B's, you need the C's, because that's what boxing is all about. And of all the sports, is the one sport that gives opportunity to more people across the board. And, we could complain and argue about all the entities that reign in boxing, but I think that gives more people the opportunity to make more money, because, like it or not, the casual fan does not recognize the 147s, the 154s. They recognize there's a belt involved. So I'm going to watch. The more people watch, the more money the fighters make. We would like to think of it that way if it was but let's talk about in a utopia. That's the way it should be. So boxing is that one sport that allows for money to be spread out, not evenly, but deeply. We have those that are ranked in the 10th and the 15th position that get a chance to make a purse.
Totally agree with that.
A question I would like to ask you is, well, it was International Women's Day yesterday. I want to ask you, so big up all the women, salute to all the women, fantastic women out there. I want to ask you, who's the most inspirational woman for you in boxing?
I think anybody that steps into the ring has all my respect, and she's my goal, because without sounding like a cheerleader, I need to bring up Clarissa, not just because she's an outstanding fighter and she's got that star power, but because she's taken on a culture, a mindset, a social position, and she's taking her destiny in her own hands. That is not easy. It's not easy for a man, let alone for a woman. And in general, I think any fighter and any fighter is my inspiration. And with that being said, all the ladies that walk into the ring, let's not forget that, like I was saying before, their sisters, their cousins, their nieces, their moms. They are moms. And I was having this conversation with Juan Manuel Marquez. When we talk about Jackie Nava, perhaps not a very well-known fighter, but she's a mother of two, and she became a congresswoman. She was the secretary of sports in Mexico, and she took on that leadership position. And once she was done training, she would continue her chores as a politician, as a representative of her area. And then she still worked at a gym, and she still, took care of her daughters, and she was still a wife and a sister and a daughter to her elderly parents. And I'm not gonna put shade on the gentleman, but women in general, before we're fighters, lawyers, broadcasters, journalists, whatever we are, we're women, and we're creators, and we're caretakers, and we're all about loving and just honing a harmonious environment for our offspring and whoever's around us. And that doesn't go away the minute the lady walks into the ring. I'm going to tell you a very interesting situation. As Clarissa was walking into her scale, she's wearing, before she, we did early in the morning, she came down to see where the scale was, and she's wearing these weird tights with some guy's face. And that you don't want to stare, because you don't want to be the weirdo in the room looking at what the hell's up with those tights. So her PR comes up to me and says, yeah, you're looking at her tights. I said, of course, who's that? She goes, that's her boyfriend. And please forgive me, because this is kind of weird, but since he can't be here till tomorrow, she wanted to make sure he was with her in her pants. I'm like, I did not need to know that. But it goes to show we're naturally, women are inclusive. We want our partners to shine. We, naturally, we want to make it all good for everybody around us. And that's exactly what Clarissa has done, exactly what Jackie Nava has done. And God bless their hearts. It's so difficult to not be judged, to not be looked upon for our weaknesses, and for them to be valued as women takes effort. And then to be valued as fighters, it's taken this long. Jackie Nava has been a pro for over 14, 15 years. And you still don't know who she is. And that, to me, is crazy. But they motivate me, because regardless of them not being recognized, the Jackie Navas, the Barbie Juarez, and the list goes on, they still keep going. The Heather Hardys, she's a mother too, a single mother, and she keeps going. So not just one, but all of them.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, salute to all those fantastic women out there. Keep doing your thing, and you're making us all proud.
Yes. I'm glad, because don't forget, you all come from my mom.
Yeah, I love my mom, so...
I can tell you're a mama's boy, Jermaine. Look at you.
I'm not gonna lie.
Claudia, the last question I want to ask you, and it's a question that we ask all our guests because we want to build a kind of like a video of all their answers. And I hope you give us the answer that I hope you give us.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest fights since Ali Frazier is going to be made, Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury. Who wins and why?
Oof. I'm trying to go down the list. That's a tough one. That's a tough one to call. And I love AJ. I really love AJ. I think his boxing skills are outstanding, but his jaw is a little suspect. So I'm going to say Tyson Fury.
Damn. Do you know why? It's because we've asked over 10 people, at least 15, Jermaine, 20. No one has said AJ yet. No one has said AJ yet. We're still finding...
Well, and you know what? It's not a fair assessment at this point in time, because we still have fresh in our minds that loss against Andy Ruiz and how he just plummeted. His boxing just plummeted. His spirit just plummeted. So obviously, anybody can have a bad day at the office. So that's why I was trying to go down, basic points mentally. And the only thing that comes to mind is two things. Tyson Fury got hit with a sledgehammer by Deontay Wilder. He went down, and it was like a puppet. He went right back up, and he kept going, and he took that win in the most outstanding way. the same thing didn't happen to Anthony Joshua. Once he went down, as flash knockdown as we want to think it was, he looked perturbed. He did not have it within him to, like what we were talking about, dig in deep and just bring the champion within him. Not in that fight. And then in the rematch, he finally fought like the bigger man. You know, using his jab, coming behind that jab, using his footwork, but it took a second try. So with that loss against Andy, the jaw is still a suspect, and Tyson Fury hits like a mule, and he can take it too. So that's where my assessment comes from. Not because of I have my heart set in anyone. As a matter of fact, I think they're both outstanding fighters. I think they're both, they both bring so much more than just boxing to the ring. And the casual fan will have a great time. They will be witnessing, like you said, another historic moment, especially because the heavyweights are the heavyweights. They're the marquee division in boxing. Who doesn't want to see two grown men beating each other up? Hello?
Totally agree. Hopefully we can get they can get this fight across the line, sign on the dotted line, and not only just one but two great fights.
You know what? Hang tight. We had this conversation with Sugar Hill.
I saw that. I did see that.
And then I just pulled it out of him. I said, June. He goes, it's like, yeah, you keep growling. You keep growling, but it sounds like it could be in June, you know, summer. I'm so excited. I just hope it happens in a place where I can go.
Yeah.
Please. Even if it's, you know.
The UK.
Wait, stop. You guys are on full lockdown, so don't say UK. Because I still don't know when you guys are going to.
We might be out by June.
June 21st.
So who knows?
June 21st.
Okay, fine. England. But I better be invited. No, I don't care what I'm going to do, but that one I have to go to.
100%.
Yes. So I could just crash in either one's pad because England is expensive.
Claudia, hopefully this fight gets over the line. Obviously, great card this weekend, and obviously I'm jealous you're going to be there. So hopefully it'll be another historic event this weekend. Canelo, Saunders, Ramirez, Josh Taylor. And there's going to be more fights even to be announced. So far it's a great year for boxing, despite what's going on in the.
Yes, thank goodness, because 2020, I feel like we need to, I need my money back because nothing happened in 2020. But yes, we're making up serious lost ground, and this is going to be a historical year. Let's write a chapter, boxing after the pandemic.
100%.
Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to speak to us today. It was a pleasure to speak to you. I could be speaking for a lot more hours, but we will.
Thank you. Yes, and just make sure that you guys can come down to Miami anytime. Weather is a lot nicer. Thank you for the opportunity to talk boxing. I never miss the opportunity, and I'm so glad I had a chance to share, this time with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And good luck with everything.
Yes, you too. Bye.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.